All right, this is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. I want to say all praise Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and shalom to all the Akim laboring in the work, pushing out this truth. All right, what you're seeing on the screen right now, this is a picture of George Hunter White, and he was basically a top operative, during the CIA's involvement with mind control experiments, specifically, dealing with LSD and the MK Ultra experiments or projects. And this lesson, comes from the inspiration of a video I watched last night, pretty much a documentary on the CIA's involvement with trying to develop ways to, what initially started out as finding ways to get people to tell the truth, and then eventually evolved into, downright mind control, dealing mainly with the effects of LSD. And this was one of the top, men involved in it. Now, the reason I have his picture up and not anybody else's picture up, at the end of the documentary, they made mention of a letter that he wrote right before he died. And I'm gonna read this letter. Now, I was already going to make a video just going over the details of the documentary, but he has a quote that they took out, and I'm gonna read it right here. It says, "But perhaps surprisingly, much of White's reactions, Salakia, but perhaps unsurprisingly, much of White's actions were driven by pure voyeurism." And this is his quote: "I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun. White later said, "Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?" Now, if this doesn't describe who the devil is, you just blind. This is the sentiment of these fucking Edomites. They are the devil. There's so much to break down in just that one quote. You got Psalms 50, which we're going to get. You got John 10 and 10, which we're going to get. Zechariah 5. So many scriptures just come to mind just on that quote, because this quote symbolizes the whole aura of Babylon the Great and these Edomites. Esau, Edom, the so-called white man that's running the world right now, was not put on this earth to heal. He was put on this earth to kill, steal, and to destroy. Revelation 6 and 4. That red horse, that's talking about Esau, Edom. His purpose was to take peace from the earth. And I don't know why it surprises me so much. I know that this man is the devil, but the scriptures tell you, they who have not known the depths of the devil. This man is so deep in wickedness. It's shit that's going to be revealed to us, right before the end, and in the kingdom, that we're going to be like, damn. This devil has done so much, spent so much money, so much science, so much witchcraft, so many lies, all to control, all to kill, all to hurt. So I want to read this again. We're going to come back to it. I got a few more just snippets of articles, because I'm not going to read all these articles. I'm going to put the links in the description. I'm also going to play the video. I'm going to play that video all the way out, but I'm going to save that to after I go through the scriptures, because, you know, you need to watch that video. And I don't want to interrupt it. I had planned to, you know, pretty much dissect it as we watch the video, bringing out the scriptures, but I'm just going to bring the scriptures out. And then you keep these scriptures in mind when you watch that video. So let's read this again. The first thing we're going to do is look up this word voyeurism. But perhaps unsurprisingly, much of White's actions were driven by pure voyeurism. Actually, let's go back up right quick. So White's involvement, you know, with this program was pretty much a sub program or sub project to the overall project of the development of some type of mind control tactic. And he specifically played a part in what was called Operation Midnight Climax. So I'm just going to read this little paragraph here. So the CIA's initial experiments with LSD were fairly simple, if shockingly unethical. The agency generally dosed single targets, finding volunteers when they could, sometimes slipping the drug into the drinks of fellow CIA employees. Over time, the experiments grew increasingly elaborate. And perhaps, Salakia, brother, Salakia. All right, I just had to check something out right quick. So let me start back up. Let me start over. All right, Operation Midnight Climax. The CIA's initial experiments with LSD were fairly simple, if shockingly unethical. The agency generally dosed single targets, finding volunteers when they could, sometimes slipping the drug into the drinks of fellow CIA employees. Over time, these LSD experiments grew increasingly elaborate. Perhaps the most notorious of these projects was Operation Midnight Climax. And basically what they were doing were getting prostitutes to seduce men. They were drugging the men with LSD and then observing them, how they would react to drugs and how sex would, you know, be used to draw out information while they were under the influence of the drug, and they were pretty much watching it. So that's pretty much the synopsis. Again, I'm not going to read all of this. The video, it will break everything down in more detail and more clarity, and give you an overall feeling of disdain for who these people are and what they do. And it just goes to show you just how much they put into wickedness. And you know, and it was just so many scriptures that just pop out. I didn't want to lose track of anything. So we'll read these two paragraphs together. All right. Though the CIA piloted these safe houses as a stage for testing the effects of LSD, and what they're talking about, these safe houses, they actually had these safe houses, or, you know, places where they would pre-designate these prostitutes to take these men to, where they had cameras and they would be able to observe them. And they had different type of paintings, and the furniture was arranged certain ways. Again, all witchcraft, all wickedness. Though the CIA piloted these safe houses as a stage for testing the effects of LSD, White's interest shifted to another element of his observations, the sex. The San Francisco house became the center of what one writer called the CIA carnal operations. And we tell you over and over again, Esau is a carnal man. He's not spiritual. He's a carnal man. And it's no coincidence that the words they use, and it's more words I'm gonna bring out that is clearly showing you who the Most High is identifying as the devil in these last days. And it's high time you wake out of sleep and quit trying to join hands with this fucking man, because he about to be destroyed. And if you don't repent and come back to the ways of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shah, back to the law, statutes, and commandments, and spiritually flee out of Babylon, you're going to get destroyed right along with him. This man is the devil. So back to the paragraph. The CIA carnal operations, as officials begin asking new questions about how to work with prostitutes, how they could be trained, and how they would handle state secrets. The agency also analyzed when in the course of a sexual encounter, information could be extracted from a source, eventually concluding that it was immediately after sex. So back to his quote. But perhaps unsurprisingly, much of White's actions were driven by pure voyeurism. And this is his quote. I toiled. That means he worked hard, wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was wet. It was fun. White later said, where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest? Now, if that ain't John 10 and if that ain't Psalms 50, which we're going to get, I don't know what is, man. So let's go back right quick. And again, it's just so much in this. So let's go back to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth. And that's what's happening right now, because this truth is consuming Esau Edom. This truth is eating him up. And he knows that he has a short time, because he knows the Lord has poured his spirit out on his men, and they prophesying this word, bringing out the truth. And that's really the only weapon we have, and the only weapon we need. It's this truth, bringing that out. So he's bringing out all the works. And you know, although those LSD experiments, so-called, took place, back in the 50s and have, what they say, have since stopped, these men have a track record of this. This is their history. This is their forte. This is their resume. This is what they do. And the only reason why they stopped some is because they've perfected it, and anybody who was involved at that level is no longer needed. They've got what they needed. Hey, the program is stopped. That's because they got all the things that they needed, and they perfected it, and they moving on to something else that nobody can know about. That's all that means. But we're bringing this truth out, and again, in the last days, because the Most High said that knowledge shall increase. The knowledge, it comes from the internet. It comes from, the Most High putting the spirit on Esau Edom to make their tongues fall on themselves. They come out with these memoirs. They come out with these documentaries. You got whistleblowers, and we're able to find this information out and filter it through the scriptures, all through the spirit. So that's the wicked being consumed with the spirit of his mouth, because these are the Most High's words. And shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. That's ultimately what's going to happen when Yahushua comes in his full glory with the brightness of those chariots and light this fucking place up. Even him, who? Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan. You hear that? After the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders. So first, I want to look up this word voyeurism. Then we're going to look up the word Satan. So let's look at this word voyeurism. So this is voyeurism. Let's hear it.
Voyeurism.
The practice of gaining sexual pleasure from watching others when they are naked or engaged in sexual activity. And look at the second definition. Enjoyment from seeing the pain or distress of others. When we tell you that these wicked elite get a kick, out of watching the masses suffer, watching the masses kill each other, these wars, this is a real thing. It's not made up. It's not conspiracy theory. We can only bring out so much at a time, hoping that you can get the full picture. When you put it all together, it's just wickedness after wickedness after wickedness. It's plot and ploy after another, all to destroy you in some form or manner. So that's the definition of voyeurism. And let's go back to 2 Thessalonians Read this again, and then we're going to get the definition of Satan. So this is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8 again. And then shall that wicked be revealed. He's being revealed now in these last days, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth. That's this truth that the prophets are prophesying, the men that are teaching, the men that are preaching, the men that are on the highways and byways, the men that are doing these lessons, according to the correct doctrine, starting with the apostles of GMS on down. And shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. That's when Yahushua eventually comes back, which will be soon. And we're hastening for the return of Hamashiach Yahushua. Verse 9, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. So let's go to the blue letter and get this word Satan. I got it put up already. Let's hear the word.
Strong's G 4567.
Right, and let's read it.
Satanas.
Adversary.
Satanas. Thayer's
that's
lexicon.
what it is. It's the adversary.
Satan.
One who opposes
Satan.
another in purpose or act. The name given to, and it's saying, the prince of evil spirits shall we are. Satan is Satan. He is the spirit. There is a spiritual demon, Satan, but he has a physical counterpart on the earth that is working all the wickedness on the earth. It says, the prince of evil spirits, the inveterate adversary of the Most High and Hamashiach. And I want to look up that word inveterate, which I have pulled up already. Let's continue with the definitions though. He incites apostasy from the Most High and to sin, circumventing men by his wiles. And that is just one example of the wiles of the devil. These LSD experiments. It ain't the fact that it's LSD. It's what they actually want is to control people's minds. The worshippers of idols are said to be under his control by his demons. He is able to take possession of men, which is true, and inflict them with diseases. By God's assistance, he is overcome. And they going off on this, on Christ's return from heaven, he will be bound with chains for 1,000 years. But when the 1,000 years are finished, he will walk the earth in yet greater power, but shortly after will be given over to eternal punishment. And that's that Christian doctrine. Sometimes the blue letter goes off. That 1,000-year period has already taken place during the fall of the Roman Empire, during the Dark Ages, up until the Renaissance. That's that 1,000-year period. When he was loose from his chains, he went out to deceive the earth, the four corners. That's what Esau did. That's what he's doing up until this very time. He's done nothing but deceive since he's going out, because there's not going to be any war after Yahushua's kingdom is established on his return. And death and hell are going to be cast in the lake of fire, which is the second death, which is that nuclear destruction. So they're going off on that. But let's look up this word inveterate. Again, I had it pulled up already. Let's listen to it.
Inveterate.
Inveterate, having a particular habit, activity, or interest that is long established and unlikely to change. This man is who he is. The Most High created Esau, Edom, to be the wicked. This is the vessel fitted for destruction. That's what the Most High created him for. Again, he's not here to heal. He's here to take peace from the earth. He's here to kill, steal, and destroy. Do you hear this? Having a particular habit, activity, or interest that is long established, unlikely to change. So how many times do you have to read some article about the atrocities that this man has done through history? When the thing first came out, I can't really say it. When the first variant came out, they wanted to use the Tuskegee's experiment. They wanted to try to, do damage control or control the narrative. And they say, hey, we know that America has a long track history of doing certain things, but we got to get past that. No, are you reading the definition? Having a particular habit, activity, or interest that is long established and unlikely to change. And it ain't unlikely, it's not going to change, because that's who the Most High created them to be. That's why you see the world the way it is. The scriptures tell you when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When the wicked are in rule, the people mourn. The whole earth is in mourning because the wickedness of this man. Let's read that. Let's read that little paragraph or whatever you want to call it, and then go to John chapter 10. So actually, let's read John 10 and 10. So this is John chapter 10, verse 10. The thief come not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. And you only get life through the truth of the word, by Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai. This is the truth. But the thief comes to steal, comes to kill, and to destroy. Now what did this Edomite say? I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun. White later said, where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest? I'm going to get Zechariah verse 5 next, and then we're going to go to Psalms, because he believed they had the sanction of the Most High. Now the Most High laid these snares for them. One, created them to be the wicked, allowed them to fill up the cup of wickedness and iniquity, but this is a snare for them. It's a snare for them in the end. That's why the scriptures say they did not consider the latter end. But this is the thief. Now, what's coming to the thief? Let's read John 10 again and find out who the thief is. This is John chapter 10, verse 10. The thief come not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. Just like the Edomite said. And again, he ain't like he the leader of the whole thing. He's just one Edomite. But it just goes to show you the depth of wickedness. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. Now let's go to Zechariah chapter 5. We start at 1. Then I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. Now we know that flying roll is not a scroll that was flying in the air. This is the description of a chariot. And he said unto me, what seest thou? The angel asked him, what you see? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. Then the angel said, then said he unto me, this is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth, because those chariots are going to come over the whole earth. For every one that stealeth shall be cut off as on this side according to it, and every one that sweareth shall be cut off on that side according to it. Verse 4, I will bring it forth, saith Yahweh of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief. Now, I ain't talking about a person that stole some bread. You know, thou shalt not steal. No, you're not supposed to steal. But this is talking about Esau, Edom, the thief who stole land, who stole people, who stole heritage, who sold the souls of men. This is the thief that this is talking about. Let me start back from the top. Verse 4. I will bring it forth, saith Yahweh of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name. And it shall remain in the midst of his house, and consume it with the timber thereof, and the stones thereof. This is talking about when Yahweh Shah comes back with those angels in those chariots, which is being described as a roll right here. This is a small one. They're going to burn the house of the thief. Now, who was the thief? And it says, let me read that again. I will bring it forth, saith Yahweh of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief. Esau is the thief. And into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name. Now, who swears falsely by Yahweh Shah's, by Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai's name. Esau, Edom, how? By making you swear on the Bible in their court systems, by swearing on the Bible when the president so-called inaugurated, which goes back to the Agarenes, which is nothing but a pagan priesthood back in the Roman ancient Roman civilization. Soothsayers, fortune tellers, nothing but witchcraft. It's all witchcraft. Also declaring themselves to be this godly nation, this Christian nation, but all their history is blood, lies, deception, rape, pillage, murder, oppression. That's their whole history. But you want to say you the people of the Lord. You paint your images over the true judges. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, who and where is he? That's where you get iconoclasm from. They painted their images over the images of the true men of the Lord, the true judges. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. You dark races. You dark people. Not all races. You got Ham. You got the other heathen nations. But you get what I'm saying. And it makes the point. Him that sweareth falsely by my name. Why does it say that? Let's go to Psalms 50. Who is thou to declare my statutes? This is Psalms 50, verse 16. But unto the wicked, the Most High saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes? Who are you, wicked ass people, to declare my statutes, to appoint yourselves as the people of God, when you are the most devious, murderous, deceptive people on the earth? Or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth, seeing thou hatest instruction and castest my words behind thee. Does this nation live by the words that are in the scriptures? No. That's why they got laws for homosexuality. That's why they got laws for divorce. That's why they got laws allowing women to usurp the authority of men. That's why they got all this wicked media pushing out sex, drugs, murder. It really just dumbing the fucking mind down. Seeing thou hatest instruction and castest my words behind thee. And that's just a few examples. I'm going to jump down to 19. Thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. And that video highlights that. And that's not a conspiracy. These are real documents. Again, they had congressional hearings over some of these cases. The CIA was sued over some of these things. Verse 20. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thy own mother's son. That's talking about Jacob. They telling you that you're not the people. They telling you that you savages. They telling you that you Negroes and you Latinos and you Native Americans, and they are the real people of the Most High. They always got you in the news, looking like the criminal, and you are criminals, but they promote that stuff. They push you to do those things and then slander you for it. That's the accuser of the brethren. They create all these avenues for wickedness. They push it in front of your face. They herd you into the communities where it's nothing but evil and wickedness everywhere you turn. And then when you do it, they slander you for it. That's the accuser of the brethren. Verse 21. And this is the point. These things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such as one as thyself. But I will reprove thee and set them in order before thine eyes. The Most High saying he's going to reprove them. And he's setting us up in order right before their eyes. And that's what the wicked elite is really afraid of. This spirit is being poured out. The men are standing up in great boldness, speaking the words of Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, because it's the truth. And this man is being revealed for who he is. Let's go back to what that quote said, because this is what verse 21 is describing. Verse 20, we'll come back to that. I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun. White later said, where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with what? With the sanction and blessing of the All Highest. See, the Most High held his tongue because he's allowed them to build their iniquity up, and because he didn't execute speedy judgment, they thought they was in a good estate. They thought the Most High was on their side, and that's what the Most High is saying in verse 21. All these things hast thou done, and I kept silence. Thou thoughtest that I was altogether such as one as thyself, but I will reprove thee and set them in order before thine eyes. This fucking man is the devil. Let's go to This is 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 11. Lest Satan should get any advantage of you, we are not ignorant of his devices. We're not ignorant of his devices. You know, that article, the video, the documentary that I'm gonna play towards the end, it's nothing new. I didn't need to watch that in order to know that this man is the devil, that he's full of deceit, that he got all type of pits, all type of nets, all type of snares meant to trap, meant to try to destroy us, meant to try to ensnare us. But we're not ignorant of his devices. These are just more and more confirmation. You know, the men, when we preach this word, what we're doing is building a case, because this is what this is. It's a trial. We're the true judges, but we're judging according to the scriptures. And the Most High is the one that's going to execute the judgment. All these things, and you got brothers all around the world bringing out the truth, bringing out articles, revealing the man for who he is. This is who he is. You just read the definition of inveterate. You know, he has a habit, a long history, a track record of lying, killing, stealing, destroying, and just being wicked. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, we are not ignorant of his devices. What's some of the devices? Some of them. The media, the music, the TV shows, the social media apps, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, the news, the drugs, which the video in that article is pretty much specifically dealing with. The Hegelian dialectic that's played out, through the two-party system, through order out of chaos, controlled opposition, problem, reaction, solution, and the medicines. All that shit is witchcraft. And again, it's just some. This is all his devices. And he's trying to get an advantage of us, but he can't get an advantage of us. You know why? Because we already know that he is a liar, and he's a forger. He's a forger of lies and a physician of no value. We got that next. This is Job. And this scripture is not in here for no reason. This is Job 13:4. But ye are forgers of lies. Ye are all physicians of no value. Now what? You develop LSD, and that's just LSD, man. Never mind the crack epidemic. Never mind the actual Tuskegee experiments. Never mind the smallpox blankets. Never mind the sterilization. Never mind AIDS and HIV. Never mind all the other shit. These are all physicians of no value. Because what value can you get from that? The ultimate goal for them is wickedness, which is control, because they think they are the Most High and they want to be like the Most High. But let's read this again, and I want to get the definition of something just to show you something. And we get this all the time. But ye are forgers of lies, ye are all physicians of no value. So let's go to Revelations 18. This is Revelations 18, and we're going to go to 23. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. This is talking about when Babylon is finally destroyed. And, Yahweh Ratazar, I be one of those men on the chariots looking down at the destruction, praising the Most High in fear and joy. Fear because we made it by the skin of our ass, and joy because we made it. And looking at the damn destruction of this place. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For the merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries all nations For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Now, I want to look up that word sorceries. We've done it before, and brothers do it all the time. But let's get it. Sorceries. Revelation 18. All right, let's hear the word.
Strong's G 5331. Pharmakia. Pharmakia.
All right, pharmakia. And let's listen. Pharmakia is where you get pharmaceuticals from. Pharmacy, pharmaceuticals, pharmakia. That's part of their sorceries. It's part of their witchcraft. So it should be no surprise. How is it difficult to put this together? How? This man uses his science, which is nothing but modern day sorcery. He uses his science. It's just witchcraft. He uses it for evil. Now, can he do something good? Yeah. There are diseases that have come about, and through his science, he's developed ways to combat that particular disease or ailment or whatever it is. But even within that, they find out how to combat it, and then they try to find out what else can they do with it, because they search out iniquity, which we're gonna get next. But I just wanted you to see pharmakia, the use or the administering of drugs, poisoning, sorcery, magical arts, often found in connection with idolatry and fostered by it. Metaphor, the deceptions and seductions of idolatry. And that's what all those experiments were going on dealing with. And these people search out iniquity. Let's go to Psalms. This is Psalms chapter 64 verse 4. Salakia, verse 5. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privately. They say, who shall see them? And that was a secret operation. And if you found that out, there's no telling what else is going on that you would have no clue about. But again, all these things will be revealed in the end. But are you grabbing the fullness of what these scriptures are saying? They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privately. They say, who shall see them? Verse 6. They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. Who comes up with, all right, how can we control the mind? And it ain't that they just thought of it. They develop ways to do it. Once you go into, the history and, all the different sub projects that came from that, they've developed how to do it. And we're going to read a few things about it. Actually, let's go get a few. This is I want to read this right quick. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. Another thing I want to do, let's look up the devil. This is 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8. Let's look up the devil and see what the definition is. 1 Peter 5 and 8. Let's hear the word.
Strong's G 1228. Diabolos. Diabolos.
Diabolos. Look, this is the word of the devil. This is not the word, the definition of the devil. prone to slander, slanderous, accusing falsely, a calumniator, false accuser, slanderer. Metaphor applied to a man who, by opposing the cause of the Most High, may be said to act the part of the devil or to side with him. This is, why can't you get that? This is who the devil is. A slanderer, a liar. He's the accuser, a false accuser. Says one thing, does another thing. Lie to the people in those experiments. You know, lie to the public about what's really going on with what, you know, whatever situation is going on in the world. Because all they do is lie. You can never believe this man. That's also why this place is called Babylon the Great, because it's full of confusion. There's no truth here. There's no fucking truth. Matter of fact, they lie to you in your face and look at you stupid for not believing it. Telling you that a woman can be a man, or a man can be a woman, or you don't have no gender. Lie to you to your damn face, and you have to eat it up and accept it. And you never sit back and just think of how ridiculous that is. Not the fact that you got to argue with some dumb idiot, you know, who may believe that, want to go back and forth with you. No, the fact that this system has pushed that out where it's even a thing where it is an argument or a discussion. This is Babylon. Baal. Alright, so I wanted to get that definition. And let's go back to this article right quick. So this is the quote. I'm gonna read this quote again. And I'm gonna show you. So I'm gonna read the quote again. But perhaps unsurprisingly, much of White's actions were driven by pure voyeurism. I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyard because it was fun, White later said. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest? Now, again, we read John 10, we read Psalms 50. Now, this article is from history.com, and the title is The CIA's Appalling Human Experiments with Mind Control. Now, again, I'll put the link in the description. I only pulled this up because I wanted to get that quote. When I was looking at the documentary, again, towards the end, they mentioned the quote that I read that this man, George Hunter White, stated. And I had to look that up, you know, to see, is it something somebody said he said? Did he actually write this? Which he actually wrote. And it brought me to a book, you know, where he quoted it. And I pulled the book up because I just wanted you to see where it came from. And this is the book, Mind Control, World Control, the Encyclopedia of Mind Control. And this is, let me go I gotta pull up Habakkuk chapter 2 right quick, because you have to understand this man. Let me pull this one up. Let's get Habakkuk chapter 2. This whole new world order, it's about control where you can go, control where you eat, control your money, what you're spending it on, control who you associate with, control what you believe. But it's also about controlling your mind and controlling your spirit. It's about pure control in all aspects, because they want to be the Most High, and ultimately they want to keep the elect from waking up and calling on the name of the Most High. But it's too late. It's already in the works. And again, it's nothing we could have done. It's the Spirit of the Most High, and this is how He does it. So I might as well start at verse 3. Matter of fact, let me start at verse 2. And Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. And what's the vision? And what's the tables? Is everything that's in the scriptures, and the tables are the Bible. It's the scriptures, that he may run that readeth it. And that's what's happening. The ones that the Most High put the Spirit on, we grab these scriptures and we're running with them. Verse 3, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. And it's speaking now. That's how we know we at the end. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come and will not tarry. This is why everything is happening so much these last two years. And it's really finna get ramped up this year. So much is going on. You got the damn variants. You got the shortages. You got the lockdowns. You got the volcanoes. You got the love of many waxing cold. People killing. People robbing. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. You got the build up of World War III on the horizon. Russia, China, America, Taiwan, Ukraine, the EU, the Middle Eastern countries, Iran and Israel. And those people aren't the real Jews. You know, so much shit. These prophecies are jumping out of the book right now, because this is the time that the Most High appointed it for. Verse 4. Behold, his soul is lifted up. Salakia. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him. Now, that's describing Esau, Edom. It said his soul which is lifted up is full of pride. It ain't right. A man who can make a statement, oh, it was fun. Where else can you lie? Where else can an American boy lie, steal, kill, rape, pillage? All with the sanction of the All-Highest. His soul is not upright in him, and it's lifted up with pride. This is who the Most High is describing. Esau, Edom, the wicked. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. That's talking about the elect in this time. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, and that transgresseth mean he causes everybody else to go off by his ideology. That's what that's talking about. His agendas, his policies, his wickedness. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. So this man can't be satisfied. That's why he's trying to bring about the new world order. And it ain't just about where you go and how much money you spend. They want to control all aspects of you. That's why they got projects dealing with mind control. Back in the 50s, who knows? I mean, I ain't gonna even say who knows where they at now, because I see where they at now. Because you can look into the world and see people, there's no love for anybody else. People are self-absorbed. You know, the scriptures tell you people should be lovers of themselves. All these apps, all this shit is just meant to destroy people morally, sever their connection with the Most High, and then allow them to be controlled, where they see Esau, Edom as God, the state as God, the government as God, new world order, one world religion, one world currency. But this man can't be satisfied till he has that. He wants complete control. That's what mind control is about. Control. And it wasn't just in America. Russia was doing it too. They Edomites. You know, I just had to make that point though. This man is lifted up with pride. So this is the book, Mind Control, World Control, the Encyclopedia of Mind Control. And I ain't saying go read the book. You know, you got the scriptures. I mean, if you interested in this, you can read it. But it ain't really no point of doing all that. I just wanted to pull that man's quote out, because that represents all Esau, Edom. But when I pulled this book up, of course, I read the little introduction. And I'm going to show you something, man. This is all through the Spirit. So let's read it. Mind control is a little known and highly controversial topic today. Veteran author and investigator Jim Keith uncovers a surprising amount of information on the technology, experimentation, and implementation of mind control technology. Various chapters in this shocking book are on early CIA experiments such as Project Artichoke and Project RHC-Edom. The methodology and technology of implants, mind control, assassinations, and couriers, Various famous mind control victims such as Saran and Candy Jones also feature in this book are chapters on how mind control technology may be linked to some UFO activity, UFO abductions. You know, like I said, you got to take the meat with the bones. I ain't even advising you go read the book. You know what I mean? I just wanted that quote. But in reading this little, I guess, excerpt or introduction, what are these projects? CIA experiments such as Project Artichoke and Project RHIC-Edom. So of course I had to look this up. Is it saying Edom? Is it supposed to be one word? And lo and behold, it is Edom. RHIC-Edom. Radio, hypnotic, intracerebral control, electronic dissolution of memory. Now I'm gonna read a little bit of this. I'll put the link. I'm not trying to read all this. You can go read it. I mean, the point is, the spirit is revealing this man. It's like he cannot hide. Salakia. All the things he has done it's being revealed. Esau Edom is being revealed. RHIC and Edom, radio hypnotic, intracerebral control, and electronic dissolution of memory. Alright, let's read a little bit. Another early reference to remotely apply electronic stimulation of the brain, ESB, is a 1959 document pertaining to MK Ultra Sub-Project 94. This document shows that a great deal of research, they search out iniquity, man. The heart of every one of them is deep. This document shows that a great deal of research had already been carried out in this area. A 350-page CIA manual dating from 1963, and they said this year is important, asserted that the agency had then mastered a technology called RHIC-Edom. Again, radio hypnotic intracerebral control and electronic dissolution of memory. These techniques can remotely induce hypnotic trance, deliver suggestions to the subject, erase all memory for both the instruction period and the act which the subject is asked to perform, and in short create the Manchurian candidate electronically. So you hear brothers talk about it ain't even only people in the truth, man. You got people telling you about false flag events, talking about MK Ultra controlled people, you know, these celebrities. All this shit is real. That's why you have to be vigilant. You have to be sober and be vigilant. Why? Because your adversary, the devil, walketh around like a lion seeking who he can destroy. And the heart of every one of them is deep. They practice iniquity upon their beds. Alright, I'm gonna jump down to this. I'm gonna read this RHIC and this Edom part. I'm just gonna read a little bit of it. So RHIC, radio hypnotic intracerebral control, is as a tool for control of individual human behavior that involves the application of post-hypnotic suggestion triggered by radio transmission. Lawrence, 1967. It refers to a recurring hypnotic state re-induced automatically at intervals by radio control. An individual is first placed under hypnosis, either with his knowledge or without it, by use of narco-hypnosis, which can be brought into play under many guises. He is then programmed to perform certain actions and maintain certain attitudes upon radio signal. The signal is practiced while he is under hypnosis to teach him how to respond. Certain behavior can therefore be played, to use Dr. Delgado's term, and they mentioned the Delgado project in the video, over a period of days or even months. Reintroduction can be instituted by the same procedure to continue the control for an unlimited time. Now let's look up Edom, or read Edom. EDOM, or electronic dissolution of memory, enables controllers to enables controllers to cause an illusionary distortion of memory that destroys one's time orientation. Here's how Edom works. Well, Edom works by killing, stealing, and destroying, and lying. Here's how Edom works. The basis of stored memory is the presence of a neutral transmitter substance, acetylcholine. I can't pronounce that word. What is it? Acetylcholine. I'm mispronouncing that word. You brothers can look it up. At a synapse which separates one nerve cell from another. Edom, through the use of radio waves and ultrasonic signal tones, suddenly builds up an excess of the transmitter substance so that it cannot transfer excitation from one cell to another. In effect, it blocks the memory of the moment, which is our feeling of momentary time. Thus, it seems to stop time for as long as it is placed in use. Edom could therefore be used for a period of several minutes, effectively erasing those minutes from the victim's memory. And again, I ain't gonna read all of this, but Edom, you know who Edom is? Esau is Edom, and Edom is the wicked. And let's just go get that. So again, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. Let's get Genesis. This is Genesis 36:8, and it's just straight to the point. Thus Esau dwelt in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. Now the reason they got an acronym called Edom is that because that is the spirit of the Most High, laying these snares and traps for them. So through the course of their history being wicked, they have left behind evidence. This is evidence. This is evidence. Who is Esau Edom? The so-called white man. They the one created this project. They the one got this technology. Is it for good? Is it for righteousness? No. It's to manipulate and destroy people. And again, that video, it just highlights a lot of the wicked shit that was going on. Again, Genesis chapter 36 verse 8. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. Now who is Edom? I mean, you know it's Jacob's brother, but what is he in relation to the Most High? This is Malachi chapter 1. The burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, saith Yahweh. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother? Said Yahweh, yet I love Jacob. That's you, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, also y'all that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. You are the one he chose. You are the one he's coming back to deliver. He's coming back to destroy the nations for the controversy of Zion. It's you. Esau is the so-called white man that's running this world right now. He was made to be the wicked. He didn't choose it. We didn't choose to be the vessels of righteousness. You know, Romans chapter 9 explains that. You know, the child, neither one of them, the children having not been born, neither one having done any good or evil. They were predestined. Jacob was the seed that was going to carry the promise for the vessels fitted for mercy and glory. And Esau was going to be the vessel fitted for wrath and destruction, because he was made to be the wicked. He was going to destroy the world, destroy the people, destroy the nations, live by the sword. That was his blessing. The sword was his blessing. And the sword is just weapons. It's technology. It could be biological. It could be these LSD experiments meant to control people's mind. That's a weapon. It could be, you know, any type of, because they use everything as a weapon, basically. But their ultimate blessing is those nuclear bombs, which is going to be used to destroy them. They're going to destroy themselves. Verse 3. And I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. That's the ultimate heritage for Esau Edom. Whereas Edom said, we are impoverished, but we return and build the desolate places. And they did return and build the desolate places. Especially after during the Renaissance, they came back into power. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. And they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people whom, Salakia, the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation forever. You hear that? You have wicked people. You got wicked nations. The Most High has punished wicked people. The Most High has punished wicked nations. The Most High has even said that Israel, he said our deeds have overpassed the deeds of the wicked. But there is only one people called the wicked. That is Esau, Edom. Why? Because of that's what he created them for. And look up their history. Look up their track record. There's only one people called the wicked. The border of wickedness is Esau, Edom. And again, the Most High said, your deeds, he's talking about Israel, we've overpassed the deeds of the wicked. And if you look at Jake today, you have overpassed the deeds of the wicked. You just ain't in no power. It just, they have the power and control to do these things. And they seek to do these things. You just playing out wicked. Let me read verse 4 again. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return, and they did, and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation forever. It's these people who the Most High hates. He set them up to be the wicked. That's why he said, you thought altogether I was one as yourself. Because he kept his silence so long. Let's get Isaiah 47. And, just going into, all this shit basically is witchcraft. It's witchcraft, it's sorcery. And you got to understand, the Egyptians, they had sorcerers. They had magicians. All these nations got high level priests and astrologers and prognosticators and scientists. All these nations have that. It's nothing new. It didn't go away. When you hear about sorcery or wizards, you thinking about people with a fucking magic wand. No, these are people who deal on the left-hand side. They get information, knowledge, and some type of enlightenment and wisdom from demons on the left-hand side. It's really all controlled by the Most High, though, because he controls both sides. He creates evil and good. He creates light and darkness. He sent evil angels into Egypt. He controls these. The Most High said, the deceived and the deceiver are mine. He the one you need to fear. But see, he's playing them. Because Esau, Edom has gotten all this wisdom and knowledge and power on the left-hand side. Their mind has been lifted up in pride. And they think they can become God. And they think they're going to try to fight God. Well, not try to fight. They're going to try to fight Yahushua when he come back. You got to be full of fucking pride, knowing the scriptures, and still think you got a chance. And they just playing the media. They just playing into the media, playing on the minds of men, calling them aliens. They got people thinking they little bugs and shit. Like one of the brothers at camp mentioned. He got people thinking, the people, especially people in the military, that they're going to be fighting bugs. We bust out laughing because that's funny, because that's what they think. They think they're going to be fighting some damn bugs and shit. No, these are the angels. These are the chariots. But anyway, let's go down to let's just start at verse 8. So this is Isaiah 47 and verse 8. Oh no, let's start at verse let's start at 6. I'm gonna start at 6. It's all for edification anyway. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand, and thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very, very heavily laid thy yoke. The Most High said he was pissed off with us, so he took away our inheritance. He was mad at us. He gave us into their hand, but he said y'all didn't show us no mercy. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke. And thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever. So that thou didst not lay these things to heart. So let me read that again. Verse 7. And thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever. so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst thou remember the latter end of it. See, they didn't think about the end game. They didn't think about the Most High's end game. The Most High's end game is that y'all gonna be destroyed. Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follow it. That's why Jacob held Esau's heel. Yeah, this is your dominion. This is your kingdom. But yeah, and we're not going to take it down. Yahushua is going to come take it down because he is pissed off. Look at all the wickedness you're doing. And this video that I'm going to play at the end is just one example, one of many examples. Verse 9, but these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. You think that's enough for no reason? You think the Most High has mentioned that for no reason? It says the multitude of thy sorceries and the great abundance of thine enchantments. These fucking mind control experiments, the LSD is just one. The crack epidemic, that's fucking sorcery. That's just one example. AIDS, they created that shit. That's one example. The whole dynamic between men and women right now in this world, that's called social engineering. That's fucking enchantment. Where men and women can't get along, households are broken up. The homosexual epidemic, because that's a fucking epidemic. Those are sorceries and enchantments. You don't think they're going to pay for that? Esau, you don't think you got to pay for that? Verse 10, for thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. You trusted in it. Thou hast said, none seeth me. And we didn't see you for a time. You were hidden. We didn't know. We didn't know any better. We were all under the delusion and the witchcraft of Renaissance Christianity. Of plantation Christianity. White Jesus. God love everybody. Black people, we under the curse of Ham or the curse of Cain. And the true people are the people that's over there right now. All those fucking lies, but we got the truth now. But these two things shall come upon thee. Oh no, verse 10, Salakia. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. Thou hast said, none seeth me, but we see you now. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee. You got the fucking wisdom to break down atoms, but you create nuclear bombs. You got the wisdom to try to control people's minds and shit. Why not control people's minds to make them follow the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High? No, you want to push them to more wickedness. You the one created the TV. You promote the fucking wickedness. You control all the media outlets. You control all the wickedness. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee, and thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. So you think you God. You think you're the Most High. Verse 11, therefore shall evil come upon thee. Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth. And mischief shall fall upon thee. Thou shalt not be able to put it off. And desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. Because when this thing really kick off, it ain't gonna be nothing you can do. That's why I say verse 12, stand now with thine enchantments. Stand up now with the enchantments. And with the multitude of thy sorceries. That's why the scriptures also say there is no enchantment against Jacob, because the spirit of the Most High is on his man. We won't be brainwashed with that shit. 2/3, we look at our people and we do bid them to the marriage. We want them to repent. We pray that they see. We already know that they're not going to see it though. 2/3 are not going to see it. But you're not winning. Those that are deceived, the Most High has given them over to that delusion. He's only dealing with the remnant. And again, it's nothing that we've done on our own. I say we, hopefully I'll be of that number. But it's nothing we've done. This is his work. This is his power. He chose who he's going to put the spirit on to wake up. He chose who he's going to put the spirit on to understand this truth and not be deceived. That's why the scriptures tell you, if it were possible, they would deceive the very elect. But it's not possible. It ain't because the elect have figured it out on their own. It's because the Most High put the spirit on them. And the 2/3, they meant to get cut off. That's the strong. They're the ones that's under that strong delusion. That's the fear and terror of the Most High. You're not winning. The ones you get are the ones he don't want. Verse 11 again, therefore shall evil come upon thee, and thou shalt not know from whence it riseth. And mischief shall fall upon thee. Thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. Verse 12, stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored. Remember what the man said? I toiled wholeheartedly, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be, thou shalt be able to profit. If so be, thou mayest prevail. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before it. He's coming to destroy all of it. I'm going to get Isaiah 19, then I'm going to play the video, and that's going to be it. This is Isaiah 19. This is Isaiah chapter 19, verse 1. The burden of Egypt. This is the current day Egypt. This place is Egypt. It's Sodom. It's also where they crucified our Savior by crossing him out. One, crossing him out of our minds, severing that connection, lying, putting themselves up to be the people of the Most High. The burden of Egypt, and obviously the oppression, the captivity. This should be a given. The burden of Egypt. Behold, Yahweh rideth upon a swift cloud. What's that swift cloud? That's those chariots. He's not coming here surfing on an actual cloud. It's parabolic. It's a metaphor. Behold, Yahweh rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. That's what's going to happen. And this verse 2 is what's happening right now, and what's going to get progressively worse. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. That's the Democrats versus the Republicans. That's the different races against different races. The whites versus the blacks. That's the masked versus the unmasked. That's the maxed versus the unmaxed. It's the liberals versus the conservatives. That's what you're seeing right now. All this division. And again, it's only going to get worse. And I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And this is the point I want to get right here. Verse 3, and the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. And they shall seek to the idols. You're going to seek your idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. And all that shit is not going to help you, as we just read in Isaiah 47. All this witchcraft, all this track history of these different programs. And that's just one. That's just one. Alright, so I'm going to leave the scriptures off there, and I'm going to play this video. I'm going to play it out. I'm not going to interrupt. I'm just going to let it play out. So I'm going to go ahead and say now, thank the Most High. I thank the Most High for putting the Spirit on me to do a lesson. So all praise Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Makakwadash. I hope the lesson is edifying. And again, watch this video to the end.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. This is an important video. I want you guys to share this if you can with people, because people just don't seem to realize that these intelligence agencies that exist, the Central Intelligence, CIA, FBI, they think that these agencies exist to protect us from the boogeyman, right? To protect us from, what's going on in the Middle East, or, the possible threats for Korea. But really what they exist for is to study you. to study human behavior, to learn how to sculpt and socially engineer the mind. That's why the world is the way it is today. That's why when you look around, you go, how did we get to this point? How are people acting like this? Because what they did was they did experiments on the brain. And they looked at humans just like they look at cattle, just like we put the Nature Channel on and we look at lions and zebras and we watch the behavior and we say, oh, well, we know that the lion's going to do this if this animal comes in this direction. Oh, we know that the animal's going to do that based on the weather, based on the time of year, all this stuff. This is what they've done. They've studied the human mind, and they've openly admitted to doing it. So I don't understand how all these people out there think that there's some huge conspiracy when the government's even had their hand caught in the cookie jar, admitting to doing these experiments on us. And what's the benefit of that? Well, it's to herd a society the way they want to herd it. A society where people are just rats in a wheel, chasing nothing aimlessly. Debt, acquiring debt. Chasing dreams they can't have, going into depression, having anxiety. They have done this to our world. I want you to watch this video. Watch them openly discuss and admit to these things and these experiments they've done on human beings. We're not even talking about rats in a lab, which is still wrong. This is done on human beings in our world. Take a look.
We are not professing to tell you the complete story of these activities. We are professing to tell you the complete story that we know. Right. But these records that we've uncovered don't tell the story. They tell pieces of it.
This is a story that has been told in bits and pieces. This is an attempt to pull most of it together. We know we don't have the full story. We do, however, have some striking new revelations and insights. The story begins here, just off the nation's front yard, the Mall. The buildings behind me were the headquarters for the World War II Office of Strategic Services. It was here that the first halting steps toward mind control began. The shaper and molder of OSS was General Wild Bill Donovan. He said of his group's work, "We may have made mistakes, but we were not afraid to try things that were never done before." In this anything-goes atmosphere, Donovan appointed this man, Stanley Lovell, a Boston industrialist, to break new ground in many scientific and technical fields. Donovan called Lovell his Dr. Moriarty, after the fiendish professor in Sherlock Holmes. Lovell liked the name and posed for this Saturday Evening Post photo. He later wrote of his OSS job that it was, quote, to stimulate the PEC's bad boy beneath the surface of every American scientist and to say to him, throw all of your normal law-abiding concepts out of the window. Here's a chance to raise merry hell. It was in this atmosphere that the search for mind control began. This bizarre man would be an active participant in that search over the next 2 decades. His name is George White, an OSS captain who had formerly been with the Bureau of Narcotics. In his diary, seen here publicly for the first time, White left a legacy of the darker side of American intelligence work. He received his early OSS training at the British-run school at Oshawa, Canada, the same school where Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, was trained. White referred to the school in his diaries as the Oshawa School of Mayhem and Murder. Mike Burke, former OSS colleague of White's and now president of Madison Square Garden Center.
Very compelling fellow, mysterious fellow, almost mystical fellow. He was fascinating because you knew something about him, but not enough about him to really get a fix on him. He also knew a great deal about the swifter elements of society, the gamier side of life, and he was very impressive in his technical knowledge of the underworld, so to speak.
He said one of our men gets beat up. He says you have to act real fast and teach these guys a lesson.
Charles Siragusa, a former narcotics officer and friend of White's.
He'll come around, he says, and break your kneecaps. And with that, one guy laughed, and George would always have little Billy with him. And this one guy sort of snickered. George White turned around and whapped him across the neck with it. Then he picked up a pool stick and started beating everybody up.
He made his point.
And he made his point.
George White was not a man of understatement or subtleties. His boss at OSS, Stanley Lovell, referred to him as deadly and dedicated. In this note from White's diaries, it says, call Lovell regarding TD. TD was a rather transparent cover for Truth Drug. George White worked with the Truth Drug Committee here at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in the nation's capital. They experimented with mescaline, scopolamine, and marijuana on unwitting victims. The committee soon learned there was no easy panacea, no truth drug at this stage. But White and later colleagues would not stop trying. The goal remained the same. As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation. But it was a discovery here in Basel, Switzerland, at Sandoz Laboratories by Dr. Albert Hoffman that led the intelligence agencies of America to believe that they had found the panacea. The discovery was lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD. The film that you see is considered by many experts to be the closest illustration of the effects of a hallucinogenic.
It was one of the first times that anybody had run into a powerful drug that was different than anything else that they knew anything about.
John Gittinger, recently retired chief psychologist for the CIA. This is the first time Gittinger has been interviewed publicly.
We could disable a whole city by putting a very small amount on a water supply. After all of these years of us, those of us who were involved in looking for this secret drug, this was the only thing that began to look for the first time like it might be something like that.
The CIA's interest in LSD was intense. The worry was that the Russians would get hold of it. Were the Soviets into LSD?
I'm going to have to say I'm sure they were, but if you ask me to prove it, I've never seen any direct proof of it.
But at one point, intelligence information received from Switzerland said that Sandoz Laboratories was about to put 100 million doses of LSD on the open market. And it caused enough concern within the agency that the United States was prepared to buy the entire supply. However, a slight mistake had been made. The mistake is made public for the first time.
I just found out on a new CIA document that there were no such large quantities of LSD on the market.
Joan Marks has filed numerous Freedom of Information suits against the CIA and has unearthed much new material. He is the author of The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, a history of intelligence agency work with mind control. He is a consultant for this report.
What happened is that there was a military attaché in Switzerland, an American officer, who got milligrams and kilograms mixed up. In other words, he made a mistake of thinking 1/1000th of a gram was the same as 1,000 grams, which is a mistake of 1,000,000 times. So when the CIA got the intelligence that there were 100 million doses on the market, in fact, there were 100 doses.
The man who would oversee the CIA's research into drugs and most of the agency's behavior programs is this man, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist. Dr. Gottlieb declined ABC News' request for an interview. In their never-ending search for the miracle weapon, CIA operatives searched here in the remote mountain areas of southern Mexico for what up to then had been considered a myth, magic mushrooms. They used this man, a part-time chemist with the CIA, to dupe this man, a vice president of a bank and an amateur mycologist or mushroom expert, to try to get to the magic mushrooms and turn them into a drug. But it would be the amateur, R. Gordon Wasson and his colleagues, who would win the race and develop the drug psilocybin from the magic mushrooms.
We went into the Mazatec area, far from the highways, remote from Mexico City. There we found that rotten bagasse, as it's called, bagasso, covered with mushrooms. These mushrooms I didn't know, had never seen. They were the sacred mushrooms.
Wasson would also discover and record the ancient mystical rites of the mushrooms from a local shaman or magical priestess, Maria Sabina.
And we were seeing incredible sights. They would go slowly or they would go fast as I ordained. All your senses are rendered acute. We say that you see visions, you see hallucinations, but that doesn't begin to tell the story. The hallucinations are only part of it. You hear sounds, you smell things. The night was thrilling.
Word of Wasson's discovery reached the CIA quickly. Dr. James Moore, a University of Delaware chemist, secretly served the CIA preparing deadly chemicals on short notice. Moore was instructed to get close to Wasson and accompany him on another trip to Mexico to get the magic mushrooms. Internal documents show the CIA felt a drug derived from the mushrooms could remain an agency secret. What in the world were they looking for with the magic mushrooms?
I think the best answer to that is that they were looking for fundamental information on compounds that would be capable of causing changes in behavior, changes in mental attitude.
Did you ever consider what would have happened if any of these substances were given to, say, unwitting people?
Oh, I don't remember having considered that specifically.
What if you... I trust perhaps you've thought about it.
Well, I haven't worried about it. Your question again, what would I have thought had I known that
any of these substances would
have been given to
unwitting persons?
You mean a hostile agent of another government?
No, I mean
that was probably one of the things they had in mind.
I mean testing it out on an American citizen.
I guess I must seem very, very cold-blooded about this, but I don't recall ever having been very much preoccupied with that issue.
But many drugs were tested in this way. A decision was made at the highest levels of the CIA to do testing on unwitting Americans. As one CIA document says, such testing would be operationally realistic. A former CIA official who worked on these programs describes for the first time how the decision was made. He did not wish to be filmed or recorded. Thus his remarks are read by someone else.
I think every last one of us felt sorry to attempt this kind of thing. We knew we were crossing the line. Every decent kid knows he shouldn't steal, but he does it sometimes. We knew damn well we didn't want anyone else to know what we were doing.
The decision was made to do testing on unwitting victims. It was decided they should be on the fringes of society because they were most vulnerable.
It was the borderline underworld, prostitutes, drug addicts, and other small-timers who would be powerless to seek any kind of revenge in case they found out.
And as their predecessors had a decade earlier, the CIA turned to George White for help. White was now a high-ranking narcotics official, and by this time the stories about George White were legendary.
So the waiter says, "You may help you, monsieur?" And George White was busy talking with me. I paid no attention to the waiter, so the waiter tapped him on the shoulder, says, "May I help you, monsieur?" George White turned around, whipped his gun out, and stuck it in the guy's face like this in this crowded restaurant.
George White did not mind bending the law, and he knew the street well. He was the ideal choice for what the CIA had in mind.
We were Ivy League, white, middle class. We were naive, totally naive about this, and he felt pretty expert. He knew the whores, the pimps, the people who brought in the drugs.
White set up so-called safe houses for the CIA in New York, here in Greenwich Village, and later in San Francisco, in this hotel, and in an apartment atop Telegraph Hill with a commanding view of San Francisco Bay. While the existence of these safe houses was disclosed last year, details of what took place within them has not been told. A former CIA official who worked in the safe houses reveals that they were used not only for drug testing, but to study sexual behavior and how it could be used to manipulate people.
I liked it, so I played
We did quite a study of prostitutes and their behavior. How do you take a woman who is willing to use her body to get money out of a guy to get him to talk about things which are much more important, like state secrets? We learned a lot about human nature in the bedroom. We started to pick up knowledge that could be used in operations.
There would be victims in all of this, but as the agency knew, they couldn't fight back. Some entries from George White's diaries. Clarice gets horrors. Janet, sky high. As one agency memo says, we have no answer to the moral question. The safe houses were not the only testing grounds. Millions of dollars would be spent on LSD research at universities throughout the country. And word would begin to spread on campus about this so-called mind-blowing drug. And suddenly, there was the counterculture of the 60s.
I give the CIA a total credit for sponsoring and initiating the entire consciousness movement, counterculture events of the 1960s.
Dr. Timothy Leary, the 1960s Johnny Appleseed of LSD.
The CIA funded and supported and encouraged hundreds of young psychiatrists to experiment with this drug. The fallout from that was that the young psychologists began taking it themselves, discovering that it was an intelligence-enhancing, consciousness-raising experience.
I know that some of the studies in which the CIA had supported used as subjects people who later became strong proselytizers of LSD. So, in that sense, yes, I think it did sustain the perpetuation of the use of the drug. And it's rather ironic, isn't it?
The counter case that I would make in relationship to that is to remember that the people who were doing the research were people who would be doing the research regardless of who was the sponsor. I don't think anybody working in that time in the remotest ever thought that it would blow up into the kind of thing that it did.
History will judge the role of the CIA and other intelligence agencies in unwittingly contributing to the counterculture of the 60s through their intense interest in LSD and other hallucinogenics. But for the moment at least, the argument can be made that the CIA helped usher in the age of Aquarius. Covering a span of history such as we are in this report, one can get sidetracked by the so-called glamour and mystery of espionage work or by the exotic qualities of some drugs. But what you can't lose sight of is what all of this would mean in terms of individual human beings. There would be deaths, there would be long-lasting and harmful effects. The best-known case is that of this man, Frank Olson, a chemist employed by the Army Chemical Corps, who in 1953 was slipped LSD unknowingly at a meeting with CIA officials. Shortly after that, Olson went into severe depression. He ended his life at this New York hotel by diving through a shaded closed window in his 10th floor room. Frank Olson was the first known fatality in the CIA's LSD program. Olson left behind a widow, Alice, and 3 children, but it would be years before they learned the real story of his death. Shortly after his suicide, Alice Olson was visited by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the man who had administered the drug, and by Robert Lashbrook, his deputy, who was the last person with Frank Olson the night of his death.
It was probably to check me out and see whether I was handling myself and handling the situation, whether I was hysterical. And I'm sure they left the house feeling ever so much better because I had been gracious and hospitable to them, so that I must have played right into their hand and made them feel fine.
23 years later, how did you feel about that meeting?
My anger was unbelievable at how I had been duped for this length of time, and the anguish which was unnecessary.
Anyone who knew during all of those years never told Alice Olson the real story of her husband's death. She would discover it by accident more than 2 decades later. In essence, it was a 22-year-long cover-up. Lyman Kirkpatrick was Inspector General of the CIA at the time of Frank Olson's death. But had not the Olson case occurred within the secret confines of the CIA, would not this case have been a prosecutable case? Perhaps manslaughter?
I would think very definitely prosecutable, and certainly from the point of view of Mr. Olson, why it should probably have been actionable.
Frank Olson's suicide slowed down the CIA's testing of LSD and other drugs, but only momentarily. The CIA was not the only government agency interested in the possibilities LSD and other drugs presented for mind control. The Army Chemical Corps first started working with the CIA and then branched off on its own. It too tested drugs on unwitting victims, and a death would result. The case of this man, Harold Blower, a tennis pro, seen here with his daughter Elizabeth, is well known. In 1953, Blower was a private patient at the New York State Psychiatric Institute. He was given 5 injections of a mescaline derivative that was being tested secretly for the Army Chemical Corps. With the 5th injection, Harold Blower died. As with the Olson case, a 22-year cover-up followed, until finally the Army admitted the real details of Blower's death. Since the initial news stories of Harold Blower's death, close to 5,000 documents, previously classified, have been released by the Army and obtained by ABC News. They provide valuable insight into Army activities at the time of Blower's death and where the Army went from there with their own drug testing program. From a previously classified deposition of Dr. James Cattell, who administered the mescaline derivative, on the purpose of the drug testing, to produce symptoms similar to those that you see in schizophrenia, on how much the patient knew about all this. We didn't delineate all the possibilities of what might happen because then you contaminate your experiment. Cattell then relates that he never even knew what drug he had given Harold Blower because of the secrecy of the Army experiments. We didn't know whether it was dog piss. This was secret. This was a secret. We weren't in on it. We asked Blower's daughter Elizabeth for her reaction.
What? How can anybody react to that? I mean, that is so far from what you'd expect from a human being, never mind a doctor, never mind a professional specialist who's supposed to care about people's minds. It's unbelievable.
A suit filed by Elizabeth Barrett against the Army Chemical Corps is now pending in federal court. Other Army experiments continued on mental patients around the country. Work done at the Tulane Medical Center in New Orleans involved several drugs, hallucinogenics, and electrodes implanted in the brain. The chief researcher was Dr. Russell Monroe, now head of the Psychiatry Department at the University of Maryland. These are various progress reports written by Dr. Monroe and recently obtained by ABC News. From one of the progress reports, a report of a woman who had electrodes implanted in the brain and was then given LSD and other drugs. She became agitated, cried, lapsed into a trance-like state. Felt as if she were about to have a convulsion, experienced waves of darkness and light, had bizarre sensations in her neck and legs, said somebody was trying to manipulate her body. At this point, Dr. Monroe wrote that the woman was obviously having paranoid ideas. As a layperson, perhaps you can enlighten me. What therapeutic effect would the type of experiment that I just described have on a patient?
Well, the therapeutic effect would be indirect.
Was this patient aware that she was being given LSD?
Yes, I mean, they were told that they would be given some medication, and they
specifically LSD?
Well, we told them, I don't think that they would have even known what LSD was then at the time. They were told that they were going to they would be given some medications which might make them feel worse.
Dr. Monroe, what do you think the Army Chemical Corps was looking for in all of this testing?
They were looking for an incapacitating agent, an agent that would not harm the person permanently, but would incapacitate them temporarily. That seemed like a humanistic way to to wage a war, if war is necessary.
When James Thornwell was given LSD by Army intelligence in 1961, this time it was no experiment. This time, the express purpose was to peel back Thornwell's brain to bear any secret within it. This time, the Army had gone operational. Thornwell, as reported on ABC last January, was an Army private stationed in Orléans, France. Classified documents were missing from his unit. Thornwell became a suspect. His 2.5-month interrogation included administration of sodium pentothal, hypnosis, isolation, and deprivation of sleep. Army documents obtained by ABC News refer to this interrogation as conventional. Despite this severe questioning, Army intelligence was getting nowhere with Thornwell, and it was decided to slip him LSD. For 16 years, Thornwell never knew what had hit him.
Tell me about the acid.
I'd rather not. It's a bad trip. It's a bad trip. That was a bad trip. The pain was so excruciating, felt like somebody was sticking me with 1,000,000 pins. You know, just everywhere. Oh, it just...
Do you want to stop for me?
I walked around.
You want to stop?
Oh, I can talk. I lived through it. I lived through it. I lived through it.
No charges were ever brought by the Army against Thornwell. He was discharged for psychological disorders. But an Army psychiatric evaluation of Thornwell obtained by ABC News, one which was done prior to Thornwell having been given LSD, says of him, fairly cooperative, oriented, alert, and gave no evidence of psychosis or depression. From the Army's point of view, this type of LSD interrogation was a success. Other documents refer to the exploitability of interrogation subjects, cracking them, keeping them off balance mentally, and providing an economical, speedy, and productive aid to interrogation. From James Thornwell's point of view, it was no success. Thornwell still has serious problems. He's run through 2 marriages, he maintains he can't hold a job, can't concentrate, has nightmares, and feels socially and emotionally isolated. Last fall, Thornwell filed suit against the government in federal court. In a moment, we will examine the closest experimentation to brainwashing that we have uncovered. By far, the most chilling experiments we have uncovered took place at this Gothic estate called Ravenscrag, halfway up Mount Royal in Montreal. It houses the Allen Memorial Institute of Psychiatry of McGill University. It was here that the CIA funded a series of experiments, severe experiments. The work was done by the Institute's then director, Dr. Ewan Cameron. It is the closest experimentation to brainwashing yet disclosed. His work, unprecedented in psychiatry, consisted of 3 areas which he called sleep therapy, psychic driving, and the ultimate depatterning. Dr. Maurice Dongier, current head of the Allen Memorial Institute.
In his psychic driving, so-called type of therapy, he would give the patient intensive electric treatment in order to make the patient regress deeply, become forgetful, and then he would attempt to implant new ideas in the mind of the patient.
Now, to a layman, it would appear that Dr. Cameron was trying to take the slate and wipe it clean, the slate being the mind. In other words, brainwashing.
Exactly, that's a very good comparison.
Brainwashing.
Yes, if you like.
Val Orlico of Winnipeg, Canada, the wife of a member of the Canadian Parliament, was a patient of Dr. Cameron's. She entered the Allen Memorial Institute because of severe depression. She describes for the first time publicly the LSD therapy and psychic driving treatment that she was given by Dr. Cameron.
And then the drug began to take hold very rapidly because it was an IV injection, and things became very furry and very frightening, and had a lot of sensations that it's very difficult to recall. Nobody explained it to me. Nobody ever asked me if I was willing to do it or anything.
He had this feeling that he would be able to get through the resistance of illness and to reach deep changes very quickly.
Did he?
I don't think that when you look at that in retrospect, the hopes that he had have been in any way fulfilled.
But Cameron would plunge on. The next step was what he called psychic driving. This involved almost endless tape-recorded messages and more drugs for the patient. Cameron wrote that this was the way to make direct controlled changes in personality.
I thought this was the coldest and most impersonal treatment that anybody could give to anybody in the world. And I became more and more despondent and more angry. I just became so despondent that I thought I can't live like this any longer. And I thought I would just go out and throw myself underneath the cars on McGregor. I stood on the curb of that street and I stood there and I thought, okay, go. And then I thought, what if you're not killed? What if you're just maimed? What if you don't die and you live and you can't even talk anymore? And I couldn't do it.
The most severe technique Cameron used was de-patterning. He described it as breaking up the existing patterns of behavior by means of intensive electroshock therapy with prolonged periods of sleep. He carried out these experiments in something he called the sleep rooms.
People in there were like babies. They cried and they were very disoriented. And we were very afraid of the sleep room. We used to walk very carefully against the side of the corridor that was opposite the sleep room with our backs to the wall when we'd go by.
Cameron used this combined sleep electroshock treatment on patients as long as 30 days. One patient he kept asleep for 65 days. Cameron retired, and his successor, Dr. Robert Cleghorn, ordered a follow-up study on the patients treated with Cameron's de-patterning method.
Showed that it was no more beneficial in its result than the use of more conservative methods.
But the follow-up study showed that 60% of those who had been de-patterned still had amnesia for periods of anywhere from 6 months to 10 years. That's quite a memory loss, isn't it?
That is a memory loss. Indeed it is. It's I think more than desirable.
In retrospect, does Dr. Cameron's experimentation and his treatment appear harsh?
I would say yes. I mean, this forceful type of approach that I was describing to you is definitely, it can be said that it's harsh.
I wouldn't call it harsh. I would say it was harder on the staff than it was on the patients, because these people had to be fed and they had to be cared for and they had to be given sufficient fluid and food and toileted and so on and so forth. It was a very difficult thing for the staff to follow these patients properly and see that they did well.
Well, I'm glad he was concerned for the staff. But damn it all, I wouldn't. I could have maybe had a different kind of life. And that makes me angry and sad, and I don't know how to explain how I feel, really. I just.
How did you feel when you learned that Dr. Cameron's experimentation was financed by the CIA?
Well, I thought, I can't even use the word that I thought, because I thought, that bastard. And he was too smart. He knew who he was working for. And, excuse me, but I just can't, sometimes I can't believe it. and yet I know it's true.
If you had the opportunity to say something to the people at the Central Intelligence Agency who financed this study, what would you say?
I realize the CIA is a very important organization and they have a very important job to do. But God, it surely doesn't have to be done on people who are totally incapable of knowing what's happening or having any defense against it. And I can't imagine the mentality of people who would do this. I just can't.
As for Dr. Cameron, he died in 1966 while mountain climbing. A colleague wrote of Cameron, "For him, the ends justified the means. And when one is dealing with the waste of human potential, it is easy to adopt this stance." Dr. Cameron seemed ideally suited for what the CIA had in mind. It was the Cold War, and especially the trial of Joseph Cardinal Mindszenty, who was forced to testify in a Hungarian court that he was a spy. And then later, the Korean War, with the coerced and mainly fraudulent confessions of American servicemen.
My germination took place on the...
That would spark intense interest in intelligence circles about brainwashing. The CIA secretly commissioned a study of communist brainwashing methods at the Cornell University Medical Center. A leader of that study was Dr. Lawrence Hinkle. He explains first the Russian method of controlling and breaking a person.
Absolutely isolated from everyone else, with one man whose job it is to get you to write the extent to which you are a criminal. In this setting, you can get people to do most anything, do you see? Because you don't have to lay a hand on them. And by the time you get through and you go up before the judge, the fellow says, "Were you a spy?" He says, "Yes, I was a spy." The Chinese never really had this kind of a state police system. They would get him in, and all this fellow does is ask you to write, rewrite, and talk to him about your whole life.
I graduated from pilot training in 1949.
While the purpose of the study was to find out about communist brainwashing techniques, CIA documents show that the agency was interested in developing mind control methods of its own, to precondition and control Chinese living in this country to be sent back to their homeland as CIA agents.
What do you think they were looking for?
Well, I think they weren't looking for agents or anything like that.
Yet the agency's perception of the work you were doing, in CIA documents we have examined, it says that the project that was being done here, they intended to use everything learned about the new agents to induce them to, quote, to perform acts of a complex, purposeful nature.
Yeah, but that was
the
never
effects
done.
of which may be out of keeping with the individual's previous
That sort
behavior.
of thing was never done. Those people were not, that was, when they first came here, the first people they sent up to see us, do you see, were operational type people from the CIA with some rather wild ideas.
Okay, this is their perception of it, if I could
No,
just
it
continue.
wasn't their perception of it either. No, it wasn't.
Dangerous to his being, contrary to any previous consciously expressed intentions and interests, contrary to the good of the individual, and subversive to the goals for which he is consciously
I understand
working.
all this talk. But the situation was, you see, those things were never done because of wise people on both sides. We were not able to do this nor interested in it.
They were, though.
Some of the low-level people were, but the high-level people were not, to tell you the truth.
But documents clearly show that the CIA was attempting to develop agents over whom they had as much control as possible. Agents who would perform tasks contrary to their own good.
Normally conditioned American who's been trained to kill and then to have no memory of having killed. His brain has not only been washed, as they say, it has been dry cleaned.
Is a Manchurian candidate, controlled by others to do things against his will, possible?
It was a remarkable film because, as far as I'm concerned, it made something totally impossible seem absolutely credible.
I would say the answer is yes, but there are many qualifications to that.
Dr. Milton Klein, a psychologist, a clinical and experimental hypnotist, and unpaid consultant to the CIA.
The qualifications would be the subject selected to produce the kind of behavior that you wish, the amount of time, the procedures that are utilized, and the motivations of the people who are designing, executing and administering the procedures. You're asking whether an individual can be, under hypnosis, influenced, coerced, persuaded, shaped to perform an antisocial act, or a destructive act, or an act of violence. My answer would be yes.
Captain Marco, will you be good enough to lend Raymond your pistol, please? Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Ben.
Sure, kid. Shoot Bobby Raymond. Through the forehead.
Yes, ma'am.
How valuable a tool can hypnosis be in the intelligence field?
None whatsoever. It has absolutely no use because nobody's ever been able to do that I know of, do it in an operationally feasible way. I'm not in any way saying that hypnosis doesn't take place. I'm not saying there's nothing to it.
I would say that most government agencies concerned with intelligence operations have been looking to hypnosis as a tool for a variety of purposes, one of which is to carry out and to execute certain intelligence operations on a basis where they would not have to rely completely on some of their own emotional reactions. Actually,
would that entail murder?
It could, if you consider that an act of killing someone under circumstances of war is murder. I think one has to define what that means.
Under circumstances of peace.
Under circumstances of peace, it would be murder.
Another former CIA agent says that Fidel Castro at one time was considered as a possible target for a Manchurian candidate.
Castro was naturally our discussion point. Could you get somebody gung-ho enough that they would go in and get him? But if you have 100% control of a guy, you have 100% dependency. If something happens and you haven't programmed it in, you've got a problem.
So in the end, it was decided that a Manchurian candidate was not feasible. But the search for mind control continued. But could the mind be controlled? Perhaps not. But is human behavior predictable? In this area, the CIA did make a significant breakthrough. A personality assessment system designed by the agency's chief psychologist, John Gittinger. It comes close to being able to predict how humans will behave.
It's really a descriptive system, an attempt to try to describe personality in a relatively systematic way so that hopefully you can get some kind of an idea to predict what the behavior between different kinds of individuals.
Gittinger's system had many uses in intelligence work. One was to draw personality portraits of world leaders. Using Gittinger's system, the agency concluded the Shah of Iran is a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac whose basic problems resulted from an overbearing father. And there were other applications.
Your assessment staff played a key role in helping other governments pick their police intelligence agencies, including, we've learned, the Korean CIA, Uruguayan National Police. Can you tell us about this?
No.
Author John Marks,
the former #2 CIA man in Uruguay, told me how in 1966, John Gittinger and an assistant traveled down to Uruguay and gave the tests in order to select members of the Uruguayan intelligence service. A psychologist who used to work for the CIA told me in 1961 he personally traveled to South Korea as part of an American CIA effort to set up the Korean CIA and to give the personality tests to candidates for the Korean CIA to choose the best man for their secret police.
But one of the basic functions of Gittinger's system was finding the vulnerabilities of an agent, a double agent, or a potential agent.
In its applicability to intelligence work, isn't the PAS system looking for a person's soft spot?
Well, of course, the answer to that is yes, but I hasten to say soft spot. This is what I consider a negative word.
Of the hundreds of behavioral projects undertaken by the CIA, Gittinger's appears to have been one of the more successful and more conventional. Other experiments were not as conventional. Neurophysicist Dr. Jose Delgado was financed by the Office of Naval Research. In this experiment, the bull is sedated. Electrodes are implanted in its brain. Delgado transmits an electronic impulse to the center of the bull's brain. Delgado has remote control of the animal. Recently released CIA documents refer to the feasibility of remote control of animals, and that special investigations will be conducted toward the application of selected elements of these techniques to man. Other areas were examined through the 60s and 70s. Brain surgery, psychosurgery, creation of amnesia, parapsychology, manipulation of genes. Even though past and present CIA officials have indicated this kind of work ended in 1963. And one of those who took part in these programs.
Thank you, sir.
In 1977, the Senate subcommittee heard testimony from many of them, but the testimony was not that revealing. According to one of them, they agreed amongst themselves to keep the inquiry within bounds that would satisfy the committee. Former narcotics officer Charles Siragusa says that he was asked to limit his testimony by the man he reported to at the CIA.
He wanted me not to say anything.
To perjure yourself.
That's right. Well, either that, I'd have to perjure myself or take the Fifth Amendment. And I'm not about to take the Fifth Amendment for anybody.
Okay. Former CIA chemist Robert Lashbrook testified he had no first-hand knowledge of the agency-run safe houses when in fact he supervised one of them. There was very little. And according to George White's diaries, was at a safe house when White conducted what he called an LSD surprise experiment. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, whom we recently filmed near his California home, oversaw many of the CIA behavioral programs. He retired in 1973 and destroyed the records of this work. In sort of a valedictory letter, Dr. Gottlieb wrote that he and his colleagues had been able to maintain contact with the leading edge of developments in the field of biological and chemical control of human behavior. Dr. Gottlieb also testified before the Senate subcommittee, but from an anteroom where he could not be filmed because of what his lawyer termed health and cardiac problems. Dr. Gottlieb declined ABC News' request for an interview. And what of George White, the man who helped the agency in so many of its programs? He would retire here to Stinson Beach, California. And shortly before his death, he wrote to his boss at the CIA, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, and summed up his career by saying, "It was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, and cheat, steal, deceive, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?" Has mind control been achieved? From all of the available evidence, it appears doubtful. The human will has prevailed up to this point. But as we have seen, work is continuing in this field. Work that we still don't know very much about. How deeply are the Russians and other dictatorships into all of this? We really can't say, and the CIA is reluctant to give out information about it. But the basic question remains, what place does all of this have within a democracy? One final point should be made. As one of the persons who worked on these programs told us, we are very capable, conscientious, and very dedicated scientists working for our country. Their work speaks for itself. This is Paul Altmaier for ABC News.